So, welcome to Paris, everybody. I'm Chris Ward. I'm the current president of the EAGE. I welcome you to our annual conference, 79th conference, including SPE Europec. I'm glad to see a big turnout here today. We are looking pretty strong for this conference. I think we're nearly up to 5,000 attendees, which is about 20% more than last year, which is fantastic news. So I'm going to give you a quick introduction to some of the things going on in SPE and some of the events this week, so you're familiar with all the opportunities. But I will also mention, for the first time, we're going to go live with this opening ceremony and some of the other events during the week. So hello everybody out there watching. This will be live streamed on EAGE website and I think also on Facebook. So a little bit of background on EAGE members. Two of the themes of my presidency were to continue our growth and diversity. It's quite a diverse, obviously has its roots in Europe and geophysics, but increasingly over the years we've been diversifying across industries, across disciplines. So this gives you an idea of the breakdown in our membership interests. I myself have worked in a few of these disciplines, pretty much most of them, in fact, apart from geophysics. I've even been a drilling engineer. Also, the growth in EAGE in the last few years has been mostly international. So we only have 43% of our members now based in Europe. When I joined the seat on the board 3 years ago, that number was over 50%. It's not that Europe is declining at all, it's that the rest of the globe is increasing in membership, driven by, of course, the growth in industries and interest in other parts of the world. So that's a healthy sign for the organization. We have a very, very strong technical program. We had a record number of abstracts submitted for this conference, and we'll have a record number of papers and posters presented. In fact, our rejection rate was also higher than it normally is because we're constrained by the space here, so I apologize if any of you had good papers rejected. Very, very strong workshop program. The number of workshops and the attendees has also increased significantly. So we're seeing a very, very strong growth and improvement in the technical content of the conference and exhibition, supported by SPE, of course. It's a very healthy sign. A lot of students as well. I think we've got some students over here. I don't know why we've segregated students, but I think we have 700 students attending the event. And yesterday we had a field challenge. And I'm not going to announce the winner of that. At the end of the show, you'll see a video of that and the winners. Two things here I'll be involved with. We have a geo quiz, I think, on Wednesday afternoon. It's always a very hotly contested event for the students, and a very popular student evening on Tuesday, which is a fun event. I'll be there as well, although I'm not a student. Back to the diversity, we made a big attempt this year to improve and increase the amount of geology interest here, and we're actually doubled the amount of sessions and papers in geology here compared to last year's event, so a significant growth in the geological side. And as a wider society, we're seeing growth, and we've got more events going on in associated industries, particularly in geothermal, but also in mining. Just we have some changes on the board, a few incoming board members. We recently had an election. Everhard Muijert was re-elected as Secretary Treasurer. I've had the pleasure of working with Everhard for a couple of years, doing a fantastic job. We'll have Ingrid Magnus joining the board. from the end of the week as Publication Officer. Michael Peter Zeus will not be joining the board, but has been elected as the Vice Chair, so in 2 years he'll become a board member as a member from the Oil and Gas Geoscience Division. And as Vice President-elect, Michael Poppelreiter. So in 3 years he will be President. We had a very contested presidential election, 4 candidates, and it really did go down to the wire. The 4 candidates got very, very similar votes. So congratulations to Michael. And then finally, Caroline Lowry, as chair of the Oil and Gas Division, is joining the board. So welcome to the new board members. 2 outgoing board members. It sounds a bit strange here. 5 incoming and 2 outgoing, but we're not increasing the board size. I won't go into explanation of that. But Carl Bertesson is retiring from the board as Publications Officer. So thanks to Carl, he couldn't make it, unfortunately. And John Britton is retiring as Chair of the Oil and Gas Division. Thank you for their contributions to the association. Some of the events going on this week. Tomorrow morning we have a forum, and the theme is new collaboration models in the exploration domain. Encourage you to attend that. Should be a good discussion there. And on Wednesday morning we have executive session on sharing knowledge in exploration with the folks up there. Another good session. And on Thursday, a session on opening a new chapter in the North Sea. What does that mean? And that's on Thursday morning with the following people, all in this room. For those of you who are watching remotely, that'll also be those will also be available live and on Facebook. We also have a special session for women in geoscience and engineering, and a session for young professionals too at these times and these areas. So for those of you who qualify, that's also a good event. In the last few years, the EAGE has been making a push to build relationships with the EU and liaise with the EU. We have for the first time at the annual, we have a stand here, and there's a special event on Wednesday at 4 o'clock with some cocktails for those of you interested in attending that. One of the things I would like to highlight, and many of representatives are here, is our sister and associated societies. We've made a big effort in the last year to build and strengthen relationships with those societies. Of course, this event incorporates SPE, but we have similar events and workshops around the world in collaboration with other societies. Due to the constraints of the last few years, this has been an area where we've been better able to serve our members, many of whom are members of more than one society. So we've recently refreshed or renewed relationships with the following societies up there. So this is a definite area of growth and opportunity. We've also opened a few new chapters in London, Madrid, Aberdeen and Oslo. So congratulations to the new local chapter presidents. And thank you for helping set those up. And we also have a green fund. So a small percentage of everybody's fees for coming to the conference gets put into a fund, and every year we start new projects with that fund. This year we've started the following project in Africa with FACE for water in Liberia. And finally, next year's conference will be in Copenhagen, so I hope to see you all there. I look forward to seeing you and another successful conference at the annual in Copenhagen. So that's all I have for the introduction, and I wish you all a successful and enjoyable conference and week in Paris. I know the weather is fantastic, but I hope that doesn't keep you away from the indoors and the sessions. And now I'd like to hand it over to Janine Judar from the SPE, who'd like to say a few words. So please welcome Janine.
Thank you, Chris. Again, my name is Janine Judah, and I am the current 2017 International President of the Society of Petroleum Engineers. And so on behalf of SPE, I'd like to welcome those of you who have an engineering persuasion to the EUROPEC portion of this meeting. In 2004, SPE joined forces with the EAGE to have a bigger and better meeting for both of us, to put a little bit more of that second E in EAGE into the programming, and to provide altogether a better experience for both our members and for our exhibitors. The theme of this year's conference is Energy, Technology, and Sustainability, Time to Open a New Chapter. And I thought I'd talk a little bit about each of those topics. Energy in general is obviously a very hot topic in the news and in the media, and there's considerable debate about whether there is peak oil demand or peak oil supply, and I'm of the peak oil demand, but not peak energy. There's still a tremendous hunger around the world for access to what we produce, both electricity and transportation fuels, and so what we do is still important, those of us that are involved in the production of fossil fuels. Natural gas will be a tremendous influence in our world as a transition fuel and as a significant contributor to a lower carbon world, and we all have an important part to play in that. But access to energy is still a very high priority in the developing world, and as I've traveled this year as SPE president, I've also spent a lot of time personally in my job with Chevron in Africa. There is still a tremendous need for what we do around the world. Second, around technology. Our industry has a long history of having a lot of technology innovations that are somewhat out of desperation. Often during price downturns, we find ways to innovate and to do things differently. We're seeing that now, particularly in two big areas. One is in the deep water realm, where the cost of deep water spreads had gotten so expensive that our projects were no longer economic, and we're all trying to find ways not only to drill faster, but to be more efficient in what we do. But of course, the big elephant in the room is the shale revolution in the United States, driven by technology, but also driven by not just the rocks, because we know there's shale in a lot of other basins in the world, but what makes it unique in the United States is the combination of private ownership of minerals, a lot of infrastructure, a lot of access to drilling rigs and pumping equipment that makes our ability to turn and turn off shale production pretty quickly, pretty phenomenal. It's changed the market, it's changed the structure of the oil and gas market, and it'll be around for a long time, and a lot of other people in a lot of other countries are wanting to emulate it. But ultimately, it was initially driven by technology, and it's a prime example of how better and different technologies can change the game in our industry. Then finally, around sustainability, also a big topic, particularly here in Europe. I've noticed as I've traveled around the world, usually the first questions I'm asked when I'm a speaker is something around sustainability, climate change, viability of our industry in a zero carbon world. And my answer is, if you look at the energy demand, you look at the material balance globally, we're going to need all of it. And so fossil fuels will continue to be part of the mix. Natural gas especially will continue to be part of the mix. And we will continue to move to more renewables as part of our global energy strategies. And I'm sure we'll hear more about that in the panel that follows us. But I'm sure those of you that are SPE members have anxiously look forward to my president's column in every JPT. But it just happens that this month's column is on climate change and SPE's status around climate change and our position around it. We had a task force, a very blue ribbon group of very well-known people in the SPE community that looked at the issue because we had some members, particularly European-based members, that were wanting SPE to take a political position on climate change. And we came up really with a two-pronged strategy. We don't lobby governments. We are strictly a technical association. But what we wanted to look at, particularly, it was two-pronged. One, that we would include SPE's technologies and practices to help address climate change and help meet the energy needs that the world has. So we have particular technology skills around carbon capture and sequestration. We've been injecting CO2 into reservoirs for over 50 years. We know a lot about it. We can help people figure that out. Certainly around energy efficiency and certainly on emissions reduction globally. But the second, we would use our platforms to help inform SPE members of the issues around climate change, around its effect on our industry, and what we could do as engineers to help make that happen. SPE we're pro-sustainability. We're very pro having a environmentally responsible world and being very responsible around environmental stewardship. But it all focuses more on emissions reduction, reducing flares in our operation, efficiency and conservation, wellbore integrity and protection of water resources, reducing our surface footprint and having greater environmental stewardship around what we do, and of course, eliminating oil spills and other obvious impacts on the environment in places where we operate. We can still be good and responsible members of the petroleum industry. We can still practice as petroleum engineers, but we can be part of the solution and doing the right things around sustainability. So finally, it is time to overturn a new chapter. To the 700 students or so that are here, you'll be part of that new workforce. One of the other things I've noticed in my SPE travels is that the big crew change we've been talking about for so many years has mostly happened. And so as this upturn continues, we will be working with a different workforce that will think differently, have different approaches to solutions that we did, and have different ideas around climate change, sustainability, and environmental impact than we do. We do look forward to being part of the new energy mix, and we continue to provide needed solutions to energy-hungry populations all over the world. So again, on behalf of the 90,000 or so professional members of SPE and 70,000 student members around the world, I do welcome you here, and I'm glad you're here, and I hope you'll attend some of the sessions. We're going to be mostly in the D rooms for the engineering part of this conference, and please come and get your little dose of engineering while we're here. Thank you again for EAGE for working with us on this conference and others, and I look forward to a great week in the most beautiful city. Well, I think it's the most beautiful city in Europe. So thank you so much.
Thank you, SPE, for continuing the great collaboration we have here at this conference. So I'd now like to introduce Kevin Mclaughlin. Kevin is Senior Vice President for Total here in Paris, and also kindly volunteered as Chairman of the Local Advisory Committee to put on this event. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you very much, Chris, and good afternoon, everyone. It's really my pleasure to be here today to address you from this wonderful city, as we just heard. On behalf of the EAGE 2017 Local Advisory Committee, bienvenue à Paris, and welcome to this conference and EAGE exhibition. I can say honestly, with all of the times that we have going on, we're very pleased to see the large audience. It's uncertain times, and it's important that you give your support to the conference and to the organizations such as the EAGE. The theme of this year's conference, energy, technology, sustainability, time to open a new chapter, as you just heard. It's very appropriate as we adapt our businesses to the impact of the lower for longer oil prices, and as we heard, the very broad impact of climate change. These are critical topics we need to discuss. It's the perfect time to explore them here. This afternoon we'll have this debate and enjoy it collectively. The energy mix is changing, but the world needs all forms of energy, both fossil fuels and in a projection of renewables, which become a big part as we go forward. But to meet the growing demands, as we heard, in a 20-year time frame, they're both important. Our ability to respond effectively to the changes in the industry, especially during this time of low oil and gas prices, determines whether we stay in a time of crisis or whether we move that to a time of opportunity. It's up to us. In order to survive as a business, oil and gas, and ultimately thrive again, we need to change. We need to adapt all our approaches and all of the historical norms that we used to work under. On the environmental side, our goal as energy companies needs to be to supply to our clients in an environmentally responsible way, but at the same time not losing sight of the shareholders and increasing our profitability. They're both important and they both go hand in hand. We also know how important technology is. Innovation, development, all approaches, and integrated challenges, the solutions that we find. It's been the history of our business. It's got us to where we are. You only have to look, as we just heard, consider the example in the US with the tight oil businesses. They were in crisis, and they used technology and innovation to very quickly and very efficiently unlock their break-evens, not only to survive, but to go into a growth. And they're in a growth mode as a result of their reaction on the technology and the innovation side. It's very impressive. And we should expect that technology, the heart of this conference, should help us unlock the conventional world. We just need to put our mind to it. As I discussed, in the time of where cost control and cost reductions are the focus of every discussion, we need to ask ourselves about the future. We know that technology got us here, as I said, so how is it going to unlock us? And there's a key question that I think needs to be discussed, which is, are we investing enough in technology and innovative applications to unlock the future? It's fine to talk about the cost reduction and working with our contractors, but are we doing enough to utilize technology? The crisis is here, let's turn it into an opportunity. Next, I would like to introduce and highlight two of the sessions. First is the upcoming debate, the impact on energy mix following COP21. Is there a business model? I believe we all realize how important the relevant climate change topic is, especially given its high-profile nature in the politics and governments that we see today. We look forward to a very engaging debate with the panel that follows just shortly afterwards. Second, I'd like to encourage you to return tomorrow morning at 8:30 to participate in the executive forum. We'll host that forum, and the theme, as you saw, is new models for collaboration within the exploration domain. And like I hinted, we'll focus on two themes: effective collaboration to help us reduce cycle time from exploration, discovery to production. We have to remember our job in exploration is to deliver value, and the quicker we get to production is a key one. So we're going to have a dialogue around that tomorrow morning. And then working with the operator and the supply chain part of the businesses. How can we work together better to, as I said, achieve innovative solutions where we're struggling today? They're important topics, and as we all strive in our businesses and as technologists and geoscientists and engineers, we've got to remember we're there to contribute to creating value for our companies. How do we reduce break-even prices? How do we improve the profitability of the projects we work on? And of course, in the title of our theme, how do we create sustainable business models? In the forum tomorrow, we'll talk about new ways of working between suppliers and operators, how to improve these outcomes, how to improve our performance, something we all work on every day, especially in tough times. We'll cover safety, cycle times, cost reduction, technology, and most importantly, I believe, integration of all of these E&P things into address our challenges. Both of these forums, the one that I'll introduce in a second, will be led by some of the key leaders in industry today. I expect them all to be very insightful and very stimulating, so please come and participate. Last, and before I close, as the chairman of the local advisory committee, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank and recognize all of the members of the organizing committees who put their personal hard work and dedicated time into making this conference, working with the EAGE team, a success. It's very much appreciated, so thank you. I'll thank you for your attention ahead of time. I'm going to introduce the panel in a second, but like others, I really hope you enjoy the conference, make the most of it, and certainly enjoy this wonderful city of Paris. Now, without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce the panel for the debate that will go on now. The moderator is Gérard Moutet. Gérard is the Oil and Gas Climate Initiative Executive Committee Chair. The three panel members will be Valérie Quinu. Valérie is VP Strategy and Climate for Total. The next panelist is Laszlo Varro. Laszlo is the Chief Economist for the IEA. And last is Chris Ward, but not least, of course. Chris is the President, of course, of EAGE, as you know, and Director of Engineering and Geoscience in the North Sea for Baker Hughes. So welcome to the panel.
Well, thank you very much, Kevin, for this introduction, and thank you very much to the organizer to have set up this very interesting roundtable on what is clearly a very well chosen subject. You know, the subject is expressed in very few words, but those few words have a lot of meaning and of consequence, I think. And I think the panel we have, as you have been describing it, Kevin, is very well fitted to discuss on this subject, since we have a global view with the International Energy Agency, a view of a major oil and gas company by Total, the view of an association, and myself, which are working for also an industry association, which is called OGCI. I will say some word afterward on OGCI. So, Paris Agreement. I think clearly Paris Agreement is a turning point. It's a result of a long process, and finally there is a kind of consensus nearly by all the countries in the world to recognize the effect of climate change and to fight against its detrimental effect. So it's also very useful, I think, for our industry to have this clear view of the future, which is to limit below 2 degrees and more practically to come to zero net emission in the second half of the century. So it is a turning point. It's a recognition that science is clear. I think nearly nobody now put in question the fact that climate change exists and is due to human being. Now let's make work on it, and still keeping, of course, a business model. So it's a turning point, and if we look at our industry, the oil and gas industry, in this turning point, of course, it has some consequences. Indeed, you know that oil and gas emit about a little more than 1/3 of the greenhouse gas emission worldwide. I think it's about 40%. So obviously, we are very implicated in this. But it's not only the only thing which is moving. We know that yes, there is this climate subject, but yes, and it has been very well said by Janine, the world still needs a lot of energy. This is key for its development, and especially for the country, we still have to develop. And as a matter of fact, to have clean and affordable energy is also a UN development goal. I think it's goal number 7. So there is still this need of energy. Another point of element is that oil and gas is in competition more and more with other sources of energy, of course renewable, which are still little but will certainly grow, and the price of this energy are decreasing with time and they are widespread. So it's also a point which is changing, and it has been mentioned, I think, by Kevin and Janine. Our industry did make a lot of transformational technology, and so far we find more and more oil. So, in fact, of this turning point, our energy is very different. Our industry is very different now, I would say, that 10 years ago. However, even say that, what is very clear also, and if we look at the projections that we have of the energy mix in the future, and I look at the projections which are compatible with the below 2 degree future, since it's here in this food that we put ourselves, we see clearly that the oil and gas remain in the energy mix at very significant level for the foreseeable future. And of course, this is due because the energy mix is difficult to change, but not only. is also due because the intrinsic quality of the oil and gas product exists. There is no product like oil in the planet which has the same energy density in terms of volume or in terms of weight. So it's very well fitted for all mobility. Gas has a big advantage against coal to emit twice less greenhouse gas emission for the same energy put at disposition. And these two products have no problem with intermittency. So there is objective elements that keep them in the mix for the foreseeable future, and we will certainly go more in detail with the International Energy Agency. As you know, the gas of place increase in the forthcoming century. So it is in this perspective, coming back a little bit from the Oil and Gas Climate Initiative, that those companies forming the Oil and Gas Climate Initiative put themselves. The oil and the gas are going to stay in the mix for a long time, so let's work at making oil and gas the more compatible with the limitation of greenhouse gas emission. So the Oil and Gas Climate Initiative, to word on it, it's a rather new initiative. It's a little less than 3 years. Of 10 major oil and gas companies, 10 for the moment, you know, we want to use the power of collaboration to have material impact on GHG emission. Those 10 companies are the biggest one. You know, we have BP, you have Shell, you have Total, you have Repsol, you have Aramco, you have the Chinese CNPC, the Indian Reliance, you have from Mexico Pemex, and I hope I don't forget any. There is Eni, I think it's the last one. So it's 10 very big oil companies. Globally, they represent 20% of the production of oil and gas worldwide. And they have the will to collaborate together. They share with them the support of the Paris Agreement, and they want to focus on practical action. And an example of one practical action they have been doing, that this year, the Oil and Gas Climate Initiative did create a climate investment fund. It has been announced last year, but it has been created this year. It's a fund of $1 billion. And the objective of this fund is to help development and deployment of technology which are not to the market now, but which are near to the market, which need a little push to go to the market. So the fund is now operational. It has its office in London for the moment. It has a CEO which has been appointed, Pratima Rangarajan, and he is on the process of choosing his first investment. Since the objective is to be practical, we have to focus on some subject at the beginning. So we try to reflect on what subject to focus, and we focus on the one which have the more quick impact on the emission, and we focus on 4 subjects, and we see mainly on the limiting the methane emission in the gas chain. This is to maximize the benefit of gas compared to coal to limit the emission. We focus also on climate, on CCS, carbon capture, utilization and storage, CCUS, and on energy efficiency. So this is one practical action that the industry is doing, and this is a sign that we are all adapting to this new challenge. Maybe now I will turn you to you, Laszlo. If you can give us maybe some more view, some more insight, how do you see the oil and gas in the future mix?
First of all, thank you very much for the invitation. Let me start with the advertisement that just last week in Beijing, in the Clean Energy Ministerial, we launched the new IEA Energy Technology Perspectives, which for the first time has a comprehensive analysis of the technology pathways leading to a well below 2 degrees climate stabilization. And if I try to summarize the 500 pages in 3 minutes, the most important finding is that achieving a carbon neutral energy system, and this is written into the Paris Agreement, is not just fiddling around the edges. It is a very deep, very comprehensive technology transformation, and it is achieved by a portfolio of innovations and a portfolio of measures across the energy system. It's not one single magic wand technology. It's not like that batteries solve the problem, or it's not like solar power solves the problem. It's a whole broad range of portfolio across all uses of energy. Now, in the transportation sector, which is the core of oil use, for a post-Paris climate stabilization trajectory, global oil demand will need to peak essentially tomorrow morning. And by the end of the next decade, it declines by around 0.8 million barrels per day annually. is reaching around 80 million barrels per day in the 2030s. So that is still a very sizable amount of oil, but it's a very transformative future compared to the previous expectations on oil. But I should emphasize that it is not only electric cars which do that. In fact, if you take all the promises of the car industry, the tweets of Elon Musk or the Davos speeches of the CEO of BMW, you add them together, the well below 2 degrees climate stabilization needs a more rapid penetration of electric cars than what is promised by Elon Musk today. And it will need 2 other additional things. One is that even with a rapid penetration of electric cars, there will be millions and millions, or more exactly hundreds of millions, of internal combustion vehicles on the roads. So there is a need for a really heavy-handed intervention to promote the efficiency of the remaining internal combustion engine vehicles. That's extremely important. And the third thing is that on our post-Paris climate stabilization trajectory, there are much less cars. Around 1/3 of the oil demand reduction is delivered by what we label the smart transportation systems, like high-speed trains instead of aircraft, public transport, bicycle-friendly cities. Typically for this, there is no technological problem, but the social and political barriers can be immensely difficult. Now, natural gas does not have such a strong bilateral relationship with any other sectors than oil has with transportation. So power generation is a bit less than 1/3 of global gas demand. An extremely important component of global gas demand is the industrial energy use. And last but not least, that 10,000 years old application of heating buildings in the winter in the northern hemisphere. And there are some good news and there are some bad news for natural gas. Now, the good news for natural gas is that indeed it brings down emissions compared to coal-fired power generation. But the bad news for natural gas is 2 things. One is that for our climate stabilization, electricity has to be hit really hard and really fast. So by the mid-2020s, so less than a decade from now, in a decarbonization trajectory, gas will be a high carbon fuel rather than a low carbon fuel, because the average carbon intensity of the electricity system will have to go below the best combined cycle gas turbines. Okay. We are talking about something like a 60 to 80 kilogram per megawatt hour carbon intensity in the middle of the century compared to 350 for the best combined cycle gas turbines. So gas does play a role in the first decade, and if you have an already existing infrastructure and good abundant domestic gas sources, which is in the case of North America, by all means use it to replace coal, and by all means that's a very good thing and very, very beneficial. But when I have this conversation in Beijing, in Jakarta, in Delhi, or even in Berlin, and I ask the question that should we replace our domestic coal with our domestic renewables using made in Germany wind turbines or made in China solar panels, or should we replace our domestic coal with LNG imported from the United States? This is usually a very short conversation and a very short debate. So there's a very powerful policy push to go from coal to renewables in one step in a long, long list of countries. But that still leaves us with industrial gas demand, which is growing more rapidly than power generation. And there, I don't think plastics go out of fashion. In fact, I found it much more difficult to imagine a society without plastics than a society without gas-fired power generation. So that amount of gas demand is there, and this industrial gas demand is the key application of carbon capture and storage in our modeling. We received a lot of criticism from the green community of why we are still wasting our time on carbon capture and storage, which is not very popular among the green colleagues. Our answer to that is that a modern society requires heavy industry. And for heavy industry, we don't see any credible pathway towards a low carbon use of industrial energy use than carbon capture and storage. And so this is the rough summary, and you will find the other 490 pages in our webpage if you visit us.
Thank you, Laszlo, for this explanation. Let me ask you a follow-up question. And you mentioned the gas compared to the coal. But in some countries there is a lot of coal, and it is cheap coal. I'm thinking of China and of India. How would you see to make this switch, as you call necessary, you know, happening since there is this abundance of coal?
So there is no God-given right for gas to replace coal. It depends on the infrastructure. It depends on the pricing. In North America, which has already existing gas infrastructure, cheap gas, of course, it replaces coal. In Europe, last year, Europe actually had a more intense coal-to-gas switch than the United States. Gas prices crashed, the economic incentive was there, and very rapidly gas replaced coal. But let me ask the colleagues from the oil and gas industry that, is there anybody apart from Gazprom and Qatar who actually made money exporting gas to Europe from any source? Either Nigerian LNG, Trinidad, Algeria, whatever. I don't think there is any export project right now in the world outside Qatar which recovers its cost of capital. So whether this market situation is sustainable from a pricing point of view, I think that's a subject to debate. And in the Asia-Pacific, we have to make a distinction between electricity generation. And in electricity generation, the sad fact is that there is a long list of low-carbon sources which, from the point of view of China and India, are more attractive than using gas for power generation. China has a massive and well-funded nuclear program, a massive and well-funded hydropower investment program, plus wind and solar power. In India, nuclear is slower than in China, but the government is very strongly favors nuclear power, and solar is booming in India, and replacing coal with solar in India is actually cheaper than replacing it with gas. However, the major Asian economies burn massive quantities of coal outside the electricity sector. So using coal in industrial process heat, using coal for building heating. There are 100 million buildings in China, in the northern parts of the country, which require winter heating. And actually the use of coal outside the electricity sector represents a bigger air pollution problem than power generation, because the latest generation of Chinese power plants are very, very good, and they are equipped with modern environmental controls. So I think the magic opportunity for gas in China and India is not electricity generation. The sad fact is that imported gas is not going to outcompete solar in India. Imported gas is not going to outcompete nuclear in China. However, heating buildings and providing processed energy for the heavy industry, that cannot be done with solar power, and that is a very attractive opportunity for gas.
Thank you. Thank you. Very interesting. Maybe other panelists would like to follow up with Laszlo. Valérie, yes, okay.
Yes, Laszlo, thank you for your description and speech. I've got a question about CCS that you mentioned a few times, and I've read in your report that CCS is key for the success of this low-carbon transition, and that it's also there is value for society to develop it, that it would be more expensive for the society without CCS. So can you tell us a bit more about it?
Sure. So I already mentioned the industrial energy use. And if I imagine a decarbonization strategy which does not have CCS, but still has heavy industry. And I should mention that urbanization currently is running at the speed of a city of Paris every month. So you take the people who leave their villages and move to Lagos, to Cairo, to Mumbai, to Jakarta. That's a city of Paris emerging in every month. So that is all steel, aluminum, glass, plastics, all the heavy industrial commodities. Now, without CCS, theoretically, you can produce low-carbon steel with a hydrogen-based reduction pathway that doesn't violate the laws of physics. It can be done. But it's an extremely expensive process, and you need to build around 5,000 windmills producing electricity and then hydrogen from water for one single steel mill. So that's a very difficult, very expensive pathway. And the other point where CCS will be needed is the coal fleet, which in Europe and the United States, the coal fleet is old. So the average age is around 40 years. the overwhelming majority of European and American coal plants will just simply be closed down. And there will not be a major use for CCS. But in the past decade, there was such an astonishing investment wave into cutting-edge modern new coal plants in Asia that right now around 1/3 of all the coal-fired power plants that are operating in planet Earth are less than 10 years old. Okay, that's not bad for a dying industry. In fact, if you take the best, most advanced technology coal-fired power plant in the United States, which is located in North Dakota, that plant would not be in the top 100 in China. That is the difference. Now, in most countries in the Asia Pacific, there is just simply no political willingness to shut down those brand new, high efficiency modern coal fleet. There are 400 billion tons of coal reserves under China. There are another 100 billion under India. Any future Chinese or Indian government is very likely to regard that domestic coal and that modern new coal fleet as a strategic asset. So we don't see a politically realistic pathway towards climate stabilization without CCS.
Thank you.
So Laszlo, if you look at any of the projections out there, they all suggest that we continue to increase, or at least a worse, stabilize use of oil and gas, yeah? The use continues to grow. But if you look at the COP21 objectives to limit temperature change to 1.5 or 2 degrees C, they suggest that we have to significantly reduce usage to much less than that, or even stop completely. So what gives there? Do the environmentalists have to back down and admit defeat? Does oil and gas industry keep going? I mean, what gives there? How do you see this conversation evolving, considering that dichotomy?
Well, our view is that the current political and technological comfort zone is not going to get us into 2 degrees climate stabilization. So what you would need to have is a combination of stronger policy and better technology. Theoretically, you could tackle climate change even with the currently existing technologies, but that would be a war economy. That would be like a mobilization of all political resources. So we think that there is a need to accelerate technological innovation in the energy sector, but there's also a need to reinforce energy policies, and CCS is a good example. CCS technology is actually improving. So the notion that there is no technological progress in CCS is unfair, but we also need deployment policies. We need to build it. We need to do it. And with the combination of stronger energy policy and better technology, you can bring emissions into a decisively declining pathway.
Thank you. Thank you. I think we have a better view of the panorama you describe. And now I would like to turn to you, Valerie. In this changing panorama, how an oil and gas company adapt its strategy? What is the consequence for the oil and gas company?
Right. So first of all, thank you, Gerard, and thank you, EAGE, for the invitation. I think the answer could be quite simple. The answer could be that actually oil and gas companies need to integrate climate in their strategy. That's as simple as that. The thing is, it's not that simple. It's actually quite complicated. But I think actually that Laszlo in his speech has probably given all the ingredients that we need to get the recipe right. And actually that's what we are trying to do in Total. So I can speak with my Total hat, but also on behalf of most oil and gas companies, I think. I think, yes, climate has to be integrated into the strategy of oil and gas companies, and actually it's great to have climate as a topic to introduce this conference. I think we now have to make sure that these are really integrated topics. So in Total, in line with the Paris Agreement, our ambition is really to become the responsible energy major by becoming, by bringing to the world affordable, reliable and clean energy. And to do that, actually, we have decided to to make reference to the IEA's 2-degree scenario, which really gives us quite good indication of how we need to proceed in order to bring the world from a business-as-usual world to a 2-degree compatible world. And when you analyze the 2-degree scenario, you have mainly, let's say, 3 big topics to succeed in that. You need to make efforts on renewable energy, develop renewable energies as much as possible. You need to improve energy efficiency. And last but not least, you also need to adapt the current energy mix. And those 3 levers have more or less about a third of the effort, again, between business as usual to 2 degrees. So in total, we have taken those takeaways from IEA, and we are trying to develop our strategies in line with these. So if we start with the adaptation of our current mix, we have exited from the coal business. We are trying to develop as much as possible in gas. It's a transition energy, but it's also a good friend of renewable energies. And so we brought the share of gas from about a third to our hydrocarbon mix to now about half of it. And our ambition is to develop it by something like 60% in the next 20 years. But to be able to do so, we need to make sure that it becomes competitive compared to coal, competitive also compared to renewables. And to do that as well, as Laszlo mentioned, we need to look at geographical specificities. The problem is not the same in China as it is in Europe, for instance. In addition to that, oil also has, we need to make efforts on how competitive it is. We have understood that there is a carbon budget for the world, so all oil assets will not be developed. So we need really to target competitive ones. And actually here it's quite interesting to see that economics and climate go together. To simplify, when you need a lot of energy to produce the oil in the ground, your project will be expensive, but it will also emit quite a lot of CO2. So targeting, again, low break-evens is quite important. You mentioned as well CCUS, so carbon capture, utilization, and storage. We have also the ambition to grow in that, and we need innovation in here. And it's not only for our oil and gas business, but also for other industries to accompany steel, cement industries, etc. And of course, the oil and gas business is not the only part of the problem. We also need to change, to adapt our business and develop in renewable energies. And we try to do that with biofuels, with solar energy, but also by investing in energy storage. And last of the 3 levers, energy efficiency is important, and again, not only for our industry, but also by trying to bring more efficient solutions to our clients. So, and mobility also is something that you mentioned. It's interesting to see that indeed transportation accounts for a large part of the world's emissions, human-related emissions. So we need to tackle that, and the oil and gas industry has a role to play in here too. So it's quite difficult to do all this, but we believe that actually we probably need to be more agile, and in total we try to change our organization to do that by integrating climate into strategy, by also creating a new business segment integrating downstream gas, renewables and power. But it's probably not enough. We also need to call for carbon pricing in order to have a right direction in which we can go. And of course, we need to work collaboratively with the OGCI, with the Oil and Gas Climate Initiative, with also some other associations like EAGE, but also with governments, with NGOs, etc. So it's quite a big change ahead of us, but we believe we can do it collaboratively.
Thank you, Valerie. If in this new panorama, one thing that seems apparent is that the price of oil, the price of gas, will be certainly different than what we could have thought 8 years ago, you know, where we were thinking of 100, 150, and it's certainly more in the lower part than the higher. So that's a new challenge, I suppose, for the oil and gas companies. So how do you adapt to this new cost panorama?
Well, so I mentioned it a bit. Indeed, we are no longer in a $100 per barrel environment. So we need to really select our projects by limiting really their cost. We need to work with our supply chain to have a really a consolidation of our cost culture within companies. That's not easy because we were used to a richer world, but it's certainly very important, and also at the same time we need to develop another part of the business, renewable energies, where it's not easy to be profitable. So, but we believe that really the cost culture is very important.
Thank you. Maybe you have other questions?
Yeah, Valerie, clearly, although it's still a small part of the energy mix, wind and solar and related storage costs around energy are coming down rapidly and becoming competitive even without subsidies now. And some companies and countries are having zero fossil fuel goals. In fact, our next conference is in Denmark. They have set a goal to be fossil-free within the next decade or two. So how do you see us adapting in the oil, and most of us represent the oil and gas industry, how do you see us adapting to that new competition?
Well, I think we really, in any case, have indeed to be aware that there is competition and that we can no longer stay in the old world. So even if we consider that some of our business will remain about the same, like we still believe that gas will have a role to play, we also still believe that oil will have a role to play in some specific businesses like petrochemicals. But I think survival will really come by diversify and make sure that we, not that slowly, as quickly as possible, that we try to move from the usual business to those new businesses as well. And I hope that in terms of skills around here in the room, but in our business, I think that we can adapt hopefully quite easily, because you need geophysicists to develop an offshore wind farm, for instance, and that's only an example. You also need some of those skills for CCUS, etc. So
you think the industry is through the denial phase and into the phase of...
well, I believe that at least the first to make that switch will probably survive. I don't know about the others, but I think we have really to be aware that we have to move, and denying is no longer
an option.
An option, yeah.
Maybe Laszlo, you would like to ask a question?
Yeah, as a former oil and gas manager myself, I would like to ask that of course, CCS is a very natural expansion of the technology and skill set and organizational culture of the oil and gas industry. But I think what makes Total very interesting is that Total is moving into low carbon technologies which are not obviously related to the traditional oil and gas technologies like solar, semiconductor electronics, not based on geophysics. So I wonder, how do you manage this process? Does it create some organizational challenges? Does it create some cultural challenges? How do you move from geophysics to semiconductor electronics?
Well, it's a tough question. Actually, it's not a recent change for Total. We've been in the solar business now for, less than a decade. But we purchased a part of SunPower in 2011, and we also had some previous experience in the renewable energy business beforehand. We can see that it's quite difficult because you cannot really find the same type of profitable projects in the renewable business than in, at least previously, the oil and gas business. So the culture has to change. I think I wouldn't. I would lie if I would say that that the cultural change has been done already in Total. I think it's still ongoing, and we can see also that we have to become more agile to do those projects. It's not the same time scale or even the same cost scale as oil and gas. So yeah, we're still in the process of doing that change, but in any case, I think we are not ready to stop. Even if it's difficult, we want to continue.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Valerie. Before moving to the next part, maybe if I can come back to you, because you mentioned that we must have a call for carbon pricing, and I remember Total has been very active with some other company to call for this carbon pricing. Maybe could you elaborate how this carbon pricing go into your strategy?
Yes, well, indeed, so just before COP21, Total with 5 other oil and gas companies had made a call for carbon pricing to the UNFCCC president, and we've been working with the World Bank since then to and we've joined the Carbon Pricing Leadership Coalition. So it's not obvious for an oil and gas company to call for carbon pricing, but for us it's quite important, again, to have clear directions in order to be able to invest for the future. And for us, carbon pricing would help increasing the speed of the switch from coal to gas where it can happen. It's probably not the case everywhere, but still, where it can happen, it's really a quicker way to achieve that. It's also a way to favor the development of low carbon solutions like CCUS, like renewables. So yes, we would like to see carbon pricing really increasing around the world. And to get prepared to that, we have put in place an internal carbon pricing in order to test our new investments and also to test the resilience of our current assets to it. So we think that it's not necessary to have a very large carbon price, but something around $30 is probably enough to start the transition of the economy towards low carbon.
Thank you, Valérie. Chris, a very diverse constraint, need of collaboration. So, what does the different initiatives, the professional association, could do to facilitate the collaboration in this quite mixed and contrasted environment?
Yeah, well, I'm here representing the EAGE. I'm also representing major service companies, so I'll talk a little bit about how both can fit into the mix. And first, I'll discuss a little bit about education. If I look at the climate change debate, I mean, there seems to be a lot of the information the public gets about the climate change debate tends to come from politicians. I hope there's no politicians here, I'm going to upset. But even from media and pop stars. I'm pretty sure there's no pop stars in here. But there seems to be very little scientific debate that influences the community. So I'd really like to see the associations and the rest of the industry have a much more grounded scientific debate over the global warming in the environment, or sorry, not global warming, climate change, because the oil and gas industry, the coal industry tends to get the stick, but it's not the only source of climate change that's out there. Agriculture, changing deforestation, there are other impacts. And also there's I'm a geologist, there's obviously natural climate changes going on as well. Yeah, and some of those are obviously very, very significant from a geological context. And even in the short term, you know, a large volcanic eruption could happen and has a major impact on the climate. So I'd really like to see the societies take a bigger role in educating the community on that. And we have our own initiatives in the EAGE, particularly with the EU, trying to address that. So I also represent a service company in the supply chain and technology development in Baker Hughes, and actually soon, most likely, together with GE, which is a very large energy company working in different areas of energy, including wind power and others. And you know, obviously, in the long term, technology will play a huge role in the energy transition. Probably over the long term, the biggest role. And how we invest in technology and what we invest in that technology and how we do it is going to be very important. You know, my company also, interestingly, I was in Holland the other week, and our biggest growth area in Holland, obviously it's not oil and gas that's been shrinking, is geothermal. I was surprised how much drilling and production work we're doing in Holland, drilling geothermal wells to heat greenhouses in Holland. So, you know, technology is gonna be the key to reducing play a key role in the energy transition. It's also going to play a key role in the environmental side and reducing the environmental costs as well.
Do you feel, Chris, that for the moment the cooperation between the professional association and the industry to join the effort, since we have seen the wideness of the question, will need to join effort on many points. Do you think this cooperation is strong enough, and is it bringing the result necessary, the innovation, the creation that one would expect? What is your view of this?
I think there is a lot of cooperation going on, yeah, and but it is increasing. I mean, from the service side point of view, the discussions with the industry it's increasing more around partnerships on how we can. Most of that discussion is around how we can be more cost efficient and have the same goals in terms of reducing dollars per barrel. But maybe the same cooperation could be levered towards the same environmental goals in the future rather than cost and production goals. But that, on the service side, that collaboration is increasing, and more we're going into long-term partnerships between asset owners and suppliers for long-term goals. And to make any change, you really need a long-term strategy and a long-term goal to make that investment and make that pay off. We're far, far too short-term in many of our decision-making. And of course, we can also do a lot better educating the public in what we do. Some of the information out there is distorted, yes.
Thanks. Any questions?
Yeah, coming back to your point about costs, so yeah, I mean, coming from the supply chain, that's quite interesting to see how you have to deal with the cost culture I was talking about earlier. And so how do you see the role of the supply chain, and how do you see the contrast also between costs that need to shrink against technologies that need to arise?
Well, again, I can talk from the association side and the service side. I'll start with the association side. I mean, obviously, like, we're very, you know, all the money feeding into the hopper comes from the oil and gas price. So if that halves, the money coming in halves, and the association has been affected too. But we're very lucky within the association. We're a non-profit making organization, and we have funds that have accumulated over years, so we've decided to invest those funds in long-term projects and benefits back to our members, yeah? When it comes to my company, like many other companies, when the revenue goes down, you're beholden to shareholders which have much shorter term horizons, so our reaction to the cost cutting is the activity and revenue coming down is to cut, yeah? I mean, my company has cut more than half its employees in the last 2.5 years, yeah? And most of those will not be coming back to the industry. The older ones have done very well and retired, and you can ask them back, they won't come back. The younger ones, there's other opportunities out there. They're smart, they soon find other opportunities, they won't come back. Same on the equipment side, we've had to scrap and make redundant lots of equipment. So when activity, and it is starting to increase, comes, the resources are not there. Price will go up, yeah? I think it's a little bit different from vessel suppliers like rigs and seismic vessels, which have a longer investment horizons. That is a longer term issue. So, you know, we're still in the same old cycle when it comes to that. Now, when it comes to technology development, those budgets also have been cut in line with the revenue. So, unfortunately, they get affected just as much as everything else. Now, one of the things that the dynamics change is that sort of leads to mergers and acquisitions, and in the recent 2.5 years, my company has first been acquired by Halliburton, didn't work, and now being acquired by GE. And I guess one of the advantages of a larger company, it can think a bit more long term and make bigger long term bets. Yeah, so we're very hopeful that that marriage, particularly that it's not just oil and gas, it's energy change, will provide benefits in that space.
Laszlo, you have any?
Yes, so we mentioned technology quite a few times. And in every energy conference, I hear the word technology very often. But when I look at the data, the sad fact is that just 3 companies, Google, Amazon, and Microsoft, commit more resources to research and development than the entire energy industry worldwide, everybody from ExxonMobil to the Chinese electric utilities. And when we assessed the progress of technology, this is the tracking clean energy progress, we found that the overwhelming majority of the key energy technologies are not on track to deliver what they need to do. So the question is that what we actually need to do to kickstart and accelerate innovation in the energy sector, how to get it done?
Well, in the long term, technology trumps all. Did I say Trump? No, I mean we can talk about the political aspect, and obviously it's disappointing for the climate change and COP21 date that the Trump and US has pulled out. But you know, if you go to the US, you'll see the trends in wind and solar and coal and what's going on environmentally in California. That, you know, environmental issues and technology issues really sort of in the long term override those political shenanigans. Yeah. So, you know, if you look back at history, it's technological transformations that make revolutionize. It's hard to predict what they are and when they're coming. The oil age, I think, started a decade ago to replace whale oil, for example. I grew up in London. I remember going to school. Some days I couldn't see the hand in front of my face due to the smog in my childhood. And that environmental pressure created energy mix changes in London, which have now crossed the whole of the UK. And I think we're pretty much coal-free in the UK now. And we see the same trend happen in California with smog in cars. And I think that's driving a lot of the discussion around environmental in China and the changing coal mix in China now. So, you know, it's tough to know with technology. It's hard to, necessity breeds innovation. When it comes to the oil and gas industry, which I've been in 30 years, you know, we had a low oil price environment in the 90s, which was actually a lot of technologies we use now were developed in the 90s, in low marginal cost environments that we use now. I mean, I was working in Canada for a while, and that was the most marginal place, but things like EOR and horizontal drilling and underbalance drilling were all developed there in a very marginal cost environment. Yeah. So, you know, I don't know the answer to that, but I know there will be changes that will move us in that direction in terms of being more efficient with fuel and being less harmful to the environment if the demand and pressures are there.
Okay, thank you for this. And what I would like is, before closing the debate, to come back 1 second on the carbon capture, sequestration and storage, since for the Oil and Gas Climate Initiative, it's a very important technology in order to reach what is the aim, which is the zero net emission in the second half of the century. And it's interesting to see that this technology is something which is proven. It is working. There is more than 17 projects, big projects on the planet, which are capturing and storing the CO2. So it's something that exists. It is clear. It is also something that has been demonstrated. I'm referring here to the IPCC work, also to the work of the International Energy Agency, that it has a social value very important. Since the cost of the energy transition, I mean, moving from the mix now to the mix we need for the 2-degree maximum warming, the cost of this transition is much higher if we don't have CCS available at scale. That if we have CCS, I think the figure you managed about 40% higher. So it has a big value. But it's fair to say that really on the ground is not moving. It's not moving at the speed it should move. So certainly there is something that we should act together, I would say, as a collaborative way to make this happen. Of course, it doesn't move too much because today there is not really a business model, but this model could happen, you know. If you look at the other technology, at the beginning there was no business model with the other technology, but they did happen, and now they are spread everywhere. So I think there is a need for a renewal of a momentum of on the CCS, and it is interesting to see that the Clean Energy Ministerial, as you mentioned, I think, Laszlo, put CCS as a clean energy now, which is really recognition of this technology. And as I said, for the Oil and Gas Climate Initiative, we try to focus on the practical point, and for the moment is one of the focus. With other one, maybe we will have more in the future. But and especially talking to this audience, because in carbon capture storage, there is storage of the CO2, which is underground, where this audience can have a very good impact. So I wanted to make this point of CCS before closing the debate. This debate will never close. In fact, it's an opening of the debate. But I think, comparing, I'm looking at the question we have been asking there, what seems clear and what is clear, that oil and gas in the energy mix for the foreseeable future at a very high level, and this is compatible with the 2-degree scenario. And this has been shown. Maybe it will be declining for a little bit for oil, but for gas it is here. And as we all know, the oil and gas fields are getting empty with time. So there is clearly a huge work for the new geoscientists to tackle this challenge, because this will be done in a different environment that maybe older people has, different price environment, different focus also on the impact on the environment of this. So it is really an important challenge that is, I suppose, very enthusiastic for new geoscientists to tackle. And what we see also that most oil and gas companies, many, I hope, are adapting, maybe not all for the moment, but there is, as you say, there is no way to escape somewhere, you know, and we have to face the future. Maybe what we need is to increase our collaboration between, not only between the professional association and the industry, but certainly professional association, industry, government and decision maker, because this problem we will not tackle a lot. And this is also the aim of this roundtable, and maybe it will be part of the discussion coming in this EAGE conference, and it's at least what we are for in the Oil and Gas Climate Initiative. Having said that, I think we can thank very much our panelists for the view you have given to this very quite complex subject, and I propose we applaud all of them. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chris, I think you are the one that follows.
Yes, thank you, Gerard, for moderating that. Thank you, Valerie.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laszlo. So I now invite Jean-Jacques Bitteau to come up. Jean-Jacques is on Friday will follow me as president for the next year. Thank you, Jean-Jacques. We're going now, and he's going to introduce the annual award winners.
Okay. Bon après-midi, good afternoon. So I will try to explain how we will work. We will have for the first 5 awards, there will be a slide and a small movie. And the last 6 awards, we will not have movie, that's all, the difference. So let me start. Please. Okay, so this is obvious. So this is the composition of the awards committee. I will not comment it, but you can see easily that it's very diverse. And there will be a big change this year. Phil Christie, the chair, will quit the committee, and I would like to let you applaud Phil for his dedication. Thank you. Next slide, please. So, the first award is the Desiderius Erasmus Award. It's an award which is granted for lifetime contribution, and it's presented to a member of the association in recognition of its outstanding and lasting achievements in the field of resource exploration and development. This year, it is granted to Martin Blunt.
Hello, my name is Martin.
Sorry, Martin. It's a photograph, not a movie. Please, can you try to fix it? Still Martin, no change.
Hello, my name is Martin Blunt. I'm the Shell Professor of Reservoir Engineering at Imperial College London. At Imperial, much of my current research involves using X-rays to look inside small pieces of rock. So we can see the structure of the rock, and we can also see the fluids and how they move within them. We've developed a facility that enables us to mimic in the laboratory the high temperatures and pressures that are seen underground, and then to look at the fluid movement. That, combined with modelling, has the possibility to transform our understanding of these important flow processes and to allow us to have a much more effective and rigorous way of designing oil recovery schemes or indeed safe CO2 storage. We have a large research group with many master's students, PhD students and postdoctoral researchers. We also benefit from significant and generous funding from the government and from the international oil industry. Over the years, I've been blessed to work with some truly exceptional people from all around the world. I've also had the privilege to teach some really exceptional and talented students. And if it weren't for them, and for everything that I've learned from them, I wouldn't be able to do the research that we're doing now. I've been truly humbled and honoured to receive this award from the EAGE. Thank you very much.
So the next one is honorary membership, I mean EAGE honorary membership. It's conferred upon a person who has made a highly significant and distinguished technical and or non-technical contribution to the geoscience community at large or to the association EAGE in particular.
Hello everyone, my name is Satendra Chopra and I work as Chief Geophysicist Reservoir at Arcus Seismic Solutions at Calgary, Canada. Receiving the 2017 EAGE Honorary Membership Award is a great honor and I would like to thank the EAGE for it. You see, I was trained as a physicist and I learned geophysics on the job when I joined ONGC India way back in 1984 and was introduced to seismic data processing and interpretation. It is there that I developed an interest in seismic attributes, and this interest continued when I migrated to Canada in '97, first joining CTC Pulsonic and later moving to Arcus, which is now a TGS company. I would like to thank Arcus TGS for giving me the opportunity over the years for application of attributes on multi-client seismic data, and also for providing a comfortable and a productive working environment where I could pursue my technical interests. Seismic attribute applications help us in extracting more meaningful information from seismic data. And in particular, I would like to mention the efforts being devoted at performing quantitative interpretation with the use of attributes. These efforts go a long way in lowering exploration risk. You see, I have been a member of the EAGE for the last 18 years, and I applaud the services that the EAGE renders, especially the way it promotes the application, the development, and the integration of the geoscience disciplines. And all these are in line with this mission. Again, my humble thanks to the EAGE for this year's Honorary Membership Award. Thank you.
Now let's come to the Conrad Schumberger Award. We are in France. Let's know that Conrad Schumberger was a French citizen. He has invented with his brother the spontaneous potential log, but also they founded in 1930 Compagnie Générale de Géophysique, CGG. So this year there are two people awardees. First one is Carlos Torres Verdin. So the award is for outstanding contribution presented to a member of the association who has made an outstanding contribution, for sure, over a period of time to the scientific and technical advancement of the geosciences, particularly geophysics. You know that EAGE mainly is geophysics. So let's see the movie.
My name is Carlos Torres Verdin. I'm a professor with the Department of Petroleum and Geosystems Engineering of the University of Texas at Austin. I have the great privilege and honor to have received the 2017 Conrad Schumberger Award by the European Association of Geoscientists and Engineers. It is a great honor because of the name associated with the award, a great thinker, a very creative person, and a person who impacted the field of geophysics in a very important way. My research work has straddled the domains of electromagnetic geophysics, reservoir geophysics, formation evaluation, borehole geophysics, petrophysics, and rock physics. I would like to thank all of my former students, my colleagues, and mentors, because this award belongs to them as much as it belongs to me. Thank you.
So the second Conrad Schumberger Award is offered to José Carcione.
My name is José Carcione and I am a researcher at OGS in Trieste. It is a great honor to receive the 2017 Schlumberger Award from the EAGE. My research activities started at the oil company YPF 35 years ago. Since then, I have developed new theories and computational methods related to seismic and electromagnetic propagation with application to hydrocarbon exploration and seismology, basically regarding anisotropy, attenuation and pore elasticity. I published more than 300 articles and 2 books, with 3 editions of wave field in real media. The theories and codes are also used in other fields of research. I was very lucky to have worked with the most prominent geophysicists who provided me with ideas and useful feedback on several topics during my career as a researcher. Most of the innovative theories, tools and techniques have already been implemented in the industry through projects, courses and training. I'm honored to be a member of the association for giving me the opportunity to teach as an EAGE lecturer.
So now let's go to the Alfred Wegener Award. You remember this guy who invented the continent drifting. Alfred Wegener was a German guy, and fortunately we will present the award to a German guy. Award for outstanding contribution presented to a member of the association, EAGE, was made an outstanding contribution, again, over a period of time to the scientific and technical advancement of one or more of the disciplines in our association, particularly petroleum geoscience and engineering.
Hello, my name is Sebastian Geiger, and I'm a Foundation C&G Chair and the head of the Carbonate Reservoir Group at the Institute of Petroleum Engineering at Harvard University. I'm honored to have received the 2017 Alfred Wegener Award from the EAGE. For the last 10 years, my group and I have been working in carbonate reservoirs. These reservoirs hold a major part of the world's remaining hydrocarbon reserves, but compared to clastic reservoirs, have much lower recovery factors. Our research links flow processes across scales to geological heterogeneities with the aim to design better engineering solutions that enable us to produce hydrocarbons efficiently and safely. We also map our learnings to the wider geoenergy challenges, for example geothermal energy or CO2 storage. I strongly believe innovative research needs to bridge across disciplines, and EAGE, which promotes the integration of geoscience and engineering, provides an excellent platform to achieve this. I would not have received the 2017 Alfred Wegener Award without the support of my students, colleagues and collaborators, who are truly inspirational and the driving force behind our work. This award is as much theirs as it is mine.
Now, the Harry van Velden Award. Harry van Velden was the first EEAG president, for those who don't know. It will be presented to Dario Grana. This is a Young Professional Award, presented to a member of the association who has made a highly significant contribution to one or more of the disciplines in our association, EAGE, and who is under the age of 30. This is true? I hope so. At the end of the calendar year in which a contribution is made. So, Dario Grana.
Good evening.
Come back, Dario, it's a photograph again. Now come back, okay.
Good evening to all the delegates of the 79th EAGE conference. My name is Dario Grana and I'm an assistant professor of geophysics at the University of Wyoming. I'm really honored to be the recipient of the 2017 EAGE Van Velden Award. My research mostly focuses on rock physics and seismic reservoir characterization. I worked 4 years as a geophysicist at Eni Exploration and Production in Italy, and I'm really grateful to all my former colleagues for all their training and support. In 2010, I moved to Stanford University, where I had the opportunity to work with exceptional scientists like Gary Mafko, Tapan Mukherjee, and Jack Borkin. I received my PhD in geophysics in 2013, and right after, I started my new position as assistant professor at the University of Wyoming. I'm really thankful to my colleague, Professor Subhashis Malik, for his collaboration, and to my students and postdocs with whom I would like to share this award. In the future, I plan to keep working on uncertainty quantification in seismic reservoir characterization and history matching, and I'm looking forward to new collaborations with students and scientists all over the world. Finally, I would like to acknowledge EAGE and the award committee for this prestigious award, and I hope you will enjoy the rest of the conference.
Now we go to the Best Paper Awards. There will no be movies for that presentation. So the first one, Nigel Anstey Award, is presented to Ahmet Wenas and his co-authors also. This is the Best Paper Award in first break. This is the main review of EAGE. Efficient development of unconventional reservoirs using 3G workflows, breaking the silos to achieve true integration with multidisciplinary software. So, please. So the second award on Best Paper is Laurent Edvos Award. The guy is an Hungarian scientist. It's presented to Nicolas Hummel and his co-author Serge Shapiro. This is the Best Paper Award for geophysical prospecting, the review also of EAGE. And the title is the Backfront of Seismicity Induced by Nonlinear Pore Pressure Diffusion. Probably a very interesting subject. So, Nicolas, please. So, the normal Falcon Award is presented to Marco Roveri. Unfortunately, Marco is not here, and none of his co-authors. So we'll give him the diploma just after, or maybe in another conference. This is the Best Paper Award in Petroleum Geoscience. And the title is The Messinian Salinity Crisis, Open Problems, and Possible Implications for Mediterranean Petroleum Systems. The Ludger-Mintrop Award. Ludger-Mintrop is a famous, also German geophysicist. He invented the Mintrop ball, the first seismic experience in the world before the First World War. And this guy also founded Seismos, which after became Prakla, and then now, which is in Schlumberger. So it is presented to Sven Nortzig. Unfortunately, also is not here. And this is the Best Paper Award for near-surface geophysics. Near-surface is the second division of our association. And the title is Relationships between Soil Hydraulic Parameters and Induced Polarization Spectra. So, So the Robert Mitchum Award, this is the Best Paper Award in Basin Research, also a review of EAGE. It is presented to Francisco Pangaro, and the title is Esperit Basin, a continental scale upper Paleozoic to Triassic basin in southern Gondwana. So Guido Bonarelli Award. I think Guido Bonarelli is probably Italian. And the award is presented to Michele De Stefano, who is also Italian. Good. This is the Best Oral Presentation Award. And the title is Simulated Geophysical Models Through Fractal Algorithm. It was presented at the 78th EAGE Annual Conference in Vienna last year. So the Louis Cagnard Award, Louis Cagnard is French, and it's presented to a French lady, Ophélie Fay-Gomor, and her co-authors. This is the Best Poster Presentation Award, and it was also presented during the annual last year in Vienna. The title is Tight Chokes, how does microtexture affect petrophysical and geomechanical properties?
Waiting for a video here.
What happens if you
press? I don't press, they do it here, I prefer. Because I was afraid to press 2 times. Is there really a video? So we will announce anyway, but no? In fact, we will present, I will try to talk a little bit, you see. We will present the field challenge, which was held yesterday. I don't know myself the winner, and I cannot say anything, so I wait for the video. Ah.
Hi, we're the IFP School team.
And we are from Aristotle University, Thessaloniki, Greece.
And we represent the University of Manchester.
And we come from Theobald Academy, Freiburg in Germany.
We are the representatives from Institute Technology Bandung, Indonesia.
We are representing University Technology Petronas from Perak, Malaysia.
We are all representing Indian Institute of Technology, Indian School of Mines and Bath from the country India.
We are from the Jabari University, Yogyakarta, Indonesia.
Total will be glad to greet the winners of the prize to go in our headquarters, scientific headquarters, and the winners will have the opportunity to meet with our corporate chief geologist and geophysicist.
And add further to their experience of the industry and their employability, and that's a fantastic opportunity.
And the winner is...
IFP,
IFP.
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 IFP School.
Please. To say something, so please.
Thank you very much for this award. We are very grateful and honored, and we would like to thank our supervisor, Karin Labat. We love you so much for your help. And to Carla Castillo, she really helped us so much, even when she didn't have to. And we want to thank the entire, our teachers at IFP School for always pushing us and listening to our presentations all the time. And most of all, we want to thank EAGE for this opportunity and to Total for the data set. It was very challenging, and we're really grateful that we got to participate in the Field Challenge. Thank you.
Okay. Now we call all awardees on stage, please. And I want you to applaud them very longly, if you can. And we will take pictures.
Okay, that's a great way to end the opening, and thank you all for your attendance. Hope you enjoy the week, hope you enjoy Paris, and please join us now at the exhibition for the icebreaker. Follow the band.